Hey everyone, happy Sunday. It is 10 to 2 and I'm just impromptu live here because I was going to make a second version of this card with a super neat technique. So I thought, why not share it? And hubby and kiddo are out for a bike ride, so now is the perfect time. Okay, so what I have created here is a card that I have cased, and I can't remember off the top of my head who to give credit to, but I will be sure to put it in the comments once I am finished with this. So I saw a card similar to this, and I have just played around with it. So I had a couple of inspirations when I was making this card. One was the DSP, and it's this beautiful DSP. Hey June, which is part of the See a Silhouette DSP. So this DSP will retire. June the 2nd is your last chance, right? So it was this really colorful, beautiful, sort of fun, bright DSP. And there were a couple of sheets that I thought, you know what, these just scream ocean, water, octopus. So this is what I have used for my background. And you can see the other side, which also really reminds me of underwater. To me, this sort of feels like waves. So I might do something with that. And then there was this one, which again, really reminds me of underwater, but also kind of reminds me of space. But what I did is, so you can see all these octopi that I have done. I actually stamped the octopus on this paper, and I used Pretty Peacock. And then I cut it out with the framelit. But so I purposely stamped where I was going to get some really neat colors in the backside of the arms. So that's one tip that we can stamp onto DSP to give us some really neat effects. So that is how I made the octopi. And that's with this stamp set. And then of course this stamp set has accompanying dies. So I used a few of these dies. You'll see here that we used the octopus. We used the net, and I'll show you what I did for the net. And then we used the insides of these to get the little sand dollars. Okay, so you can see we've got those on there as well. So I used all of those dies out of this set. And then I also used, this is our stitch nested shapes. Now this vellum was one of the Celebration vellums, so you can't get this anymore. And this is a really pale green, and what I actually did was I flipped it over. So that's a trick with colored vellum. If you want to use something that's not clear, but the color seems too bright to you, then flip it to the back side and you'll get a much subtler effect. I also felt then we didn't get these raised bumps. So to me, again, this kind of looks like underwater. This looks like the bubbles, and this is sort of now really sort of pale, washed out green. So I just wanted a bit of a contrast for the octopus against the background. So this is the card we're going to be working on. This is the second set of things. So how I did the netting, so you can see the netting is also multicolored. So again, same thing. I took that DSP, a different page of it, and cut out the net. See if I can find some. So it was this page here, this piece of the paper, and you can see it had yellow, it had red, and then it had blues and greens. So I tried to center my net over the blue and green. Again, just to make it a bit more fun. And you could do that on white paper by sponging it or using your brayer. But if you have DSP and you can make it work a different way, then why not? Okay, we're gonna put this aside. We're gonna put this card sort of in the corner. And I'm gonna show you this neat technique that we are going to do with embossing. We're also gonna do some watercolor. So I'm gonna show you some stuff with the aqua painter. But first we have to put this card, you know what, let's do the aqua painter first, because then we'll start to dry. So we're gonna put this to the side. So basically this piece here, where I did the birthday wishes, I took a piece of watercolor paper, and then I used my aqua painter, and some Coastal Cabana ink to sort of get this neat kind of washed out look. And then while this paper was still wet, I stamped on it with this stamp that's from Itty Bitty Birthday and Night of Navy. And that just kind of made it just a little less clear and kind of a little bit like it had been wet and like underwater. So I thought that was a neat effect. I was just kind of playing around with that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get a second piece of scrap paper. So you're going to see this is messy. It's going to have stuff all over it. We're just going to bring this out so that I don't get my other paper wet. So I took my Coastal Cabana stamp pad and I just opened it up. Then I took my Coastal Cabana re-inker and I just put some ink in the top of the lid. And then you have your aqua painter. So when you get a pack of aqua painters, at least presently, these are changing slightly in the new catalog. I think they come with 3 tips maybe. So you get a fine and you get a fat, and then you just put water in them, and that's how you use them. So I used the fat because I'm painting this whole thing. So depending on how colorful you want it, how saturated the color is, how much water you're going to use and how much ink. So you're just kind of go like this, and then you're just going to kind of do like this. And if you want it to be more saturated, you're going to need to just have more water. So you can mix the water here, and then you're just going to kind of paint over it. So it is not a science, and depending on how artistic you are or picky you are is sort of how you're going to do it. And then if you decide you don't really love this side, because I don't like how it's really dark there, then you could flip it over. So what the problem right now is I don't have any much water in this guy anymore, so I'm actually going to switch it out for the other one, rather than take a break and go to the sink, because this one is full of water. So you can actually just squeeze, you could squeeze some water in here. So you can see we're going to get, this is going to be, there we go. So that is more the look that I wanted. I'm not going to use this whole piece, so I'm going to sort of find the part of it I like the most, and that's where I'm going to stamp. And then we'll let it dry, and then we will cut it out. Okay, so that is how you would use these on your paper, and you'll see lots of people do this for a background. It's really gorgeous. I am not super awesome at it. There are some demos that it is like one of their go-to things, and they are fabulous at it. So while this is still wet, I'm going to ink up this stamp with Night of Navy. And I kind of like it right here in the middle. So you can see it's kind of bleeding, right? Because the paper is a bit wet. And it doesn't matter that it's not exactly straight, because we can sort of fix that with our framelit that we're going to use. So we're just going to sort of put that to the side, and we will come back to it. And we're going to close this up so we don't make a mess. Hello, Kathy. Okay. So we will take this out of the way. So now we're going to put together the front of this card, and we need to do this first, so then we can do this little fun thing we're going to do with the versamark. So what I'm actually going to do, we're just going to take everything off. So the first thing I did with this card, I'll put this card up here, is I just attached this to a white one. So this DSP is 4 inches by 5 and a half, no, 5 1/4. And I want to try to have the lighter corner, no, I want the lighter corner up top. And then the white that I'm framing it with is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And that's just going to give it a nice little white frame on our card front, which is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. All right, so there is this piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build everything up on this piece of vellum, and then I'm going to put that onto the card front. So what I did with this other card is I kind of figured out where I wanted this, and I just placed it on top. No adhesive, I just placed it there. And you're going to sort of see why in a second. So now I'm going to take the octopus and I'm going to place everything on here flat. We're not using any dimensionals except for on our sentiment. So I'm going to take my tape runner, you can, whatever sort of adhesive you use, and I'm just going to put adhesive across a lot of the spots on the octopus, all of the big spots that will hold adhesive, and then you want to get some of the bits on the edges or sides. So once I'm happy with that, I am going to figure out where I want to place it. So if we look at my other one, of course it doesn't have to be quite the same, but it's kind of a bit like that. And then I'm going to place him on and press. And I'm gonna use quite a bit of force here because this octopus is what is gonna be holding a bunch of this netting down. And then once I do that, I'm gonna turn it over and add a little bit more adhesive and press down. That way my adhesive isn't gonna show, but I'm not worried about these bits coming off the card. So now we have our bits of sand dollars, whatever you want to call these guys. So again, I just put some snail across the middle, and then I take my tool and just make sure you don't see any of it. And then place this on here. Press it in. And then I'm going to take this white one and put it near the bottom here. I'm just going to kind of lift that leg up a bit. And then another full-size one here. Put that over here. And this small one over here. So years ago, when this stamp set first came out, I was actually invited or chosen, whatever you want to say, to be a demonstrator, to do a live demonstration at a Stampin' Up convention in Red Deer. And this is what they gave me. They gave me this stamp set and the dies, and they gave me some ink colors and things like that. So I had to create a bunch of samples and then be up on stage and demonstrate those. It was quite an experience. So I'm kind of torn about this stamp set. It's retiring and I can't decide, do I keep it because, you know, I had that opportunity with it, or do I let it go because I can't really use it in my business? Food for thought. So now I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to put adhesive again anywhere where you're not going to see it. Because this vellum though has some texture and what we have on top of it is fairly colored, you're really not going to see the snail. But that is my trick when I work with vellum. So I'm going to line this up with the edge and put it on like that. So you can see this comes together really quite quickly. Like essentially, we're done. So what I am going to show you now, hey Kathy, is this neat little trick with versamark, clear embossing powder and versamark. And it is going to sort of add a very underwater look. So I didn't do it on this one, so this is just your normal card, nothing extra. We're gonna do it on this one. So we are going to take our versamark stamp pad, and in this case, it does need to be versamark. You don't necessarily always have to use versamark when you use embossing powder, but for this one you do. So we want versamark and we want clear. I will use my embossing buddy, but again, we don't really need it here because we are gonna want our embossing powder everywhere. And we'll see how this turns out. I've done this technique before and it really worked well. I'm thinking now as I'm doing this live that I'm not sure how well it's going to actually stick on the vellum, but we'll give it a try. So you are going to get this ready first because we don't want to not get it on our card. We're going to put versamark everywhere. So we're basically going to ink up our entire card front with versamark. Okay, I can see it, so that's good. And now we're going to get our entire card front covered in clear embossing powder. This is going to make a bit of a mess. I'm going to actually do it in the bag. And of course, you kind of got to get your thumb out of the way. Okay, so you can see the entire thing has got embossing powder on it. I'm just going to give it a bit of a shake. Okay, so there it is, you can see. And now we are going to take our heat gun. I'll see if I can pull the heat gun all the way over, because this is going to be super fun to watch. All right, here we go. Now, this is what I would suggest if you have them, some tongs, which I do have some somewhere. But of course, I'm not exactly sure where those are at the moment, so I'm just going to start in one corner and work my way up. Okay, so we're going to start over here. It takes a second for the heat gun to heat up, so it doesn't instantly change. There we go. So you can see, hopefully, that it's getting this cool kind of glazed look. I'm going to try to not hover too long over the vellum, because another thing, I'm not really sure if vellum will melt or, you know, go on fire. That would be dangerous. So you have to make sure you don't miss any bits. So at this point our heat gun will get pretty warm. So just kind of keep moving it around. So it looks wet. So I feel like you can see that. I can see that. So hopefully you guys can see it too. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the two together, and I think that you will see the difference. So here is the card that is just the DSP, and then here is the card that we've done this really cool water, you know, underwater kind of effect. So it gives your card a really neat look. And it's not hard. But it looks super awesome. So it would be good for anything that you want to look like it's underwater, or anything that you want to look glassy, right? Because that's kind of the look we're giving it, like the glass, you sort of, you know, you look at a lake or a body of water and it looks glassy. Okay, so let's put that stuff aside. So now we're going to go back to this piece, which is much drier now. And what I used was the stitched rectangles. I used the smallest one here. And I'm going to center it on here. So on this one, when I did this one, it wasn't quite centered. So I actually had to go back in and do a second cut and make it smaller. With this one, because of the way I've got it, I can. The other one I stamped too close to the edge of the paper. So I'm just going to come off to the side here versus bringing the Big Shot over. I'm going to put it on the Big Shot. You just want to remember with your rectangle dies that you want to have them at an angle, and I'll show you what I mean here. I'll put it in and then I'll bring it back over. So you want to run your dies through on an angle. You don't want them to be straight. Something about these rectangle dies, they put a lot of, or any die like this, when several edges are going through at once, so a rectangle or a square, when you've got like a whole big edge going through at once, it's really hard on the Big Shot. It has to work much harder. So you'll hear it make a terrible noise and you have to like really hold on to the handle. So that's why if you angle it, then it's not having to cut through so many things at once. Okay, there we have it. So I'm not going to trim this one. This one, like I said, I trimmed a little smaller. So if you wanted to trim it, all you would do is place your die back on top where you wanted your new end to be, and you can make it as short as you need it. Okay, so that is the trick with dies like that. If you need a smaller rectangle or something in between. So then all I did for this card is I took some mini dimensionals and I put 3 across here. And so this is totally dry. I just want to let you know, it looks really wet, right? So that's the cool thing about it, but it's not. It's definitely not wet. And because we did this watercolor paper at the beginning, it is also not wet. And then I just kind of had this across here like that. Just stick that down. So you can, I hope you can see the difference. I hope you guys think this effect is pretty cool. Maybe you'll use it in your future projects. And then, because I am working feverishly to use up items that are retiring, I pulled out some of these enamel dots. So these are the glitter enamel dots in grape, granny apple, melon mambo, and coastal cabana. So none of these colors are retiring, but the dots themselves are. And then I kind of hid one underneath, partially underneath, which I thought was a kind of neat effect. And then I had one of these smaller guys down here. And then up here, I kind of drew on the purple color. And I had, oh, not that guy. I think it's this middle size. Yeah. Oh, haha. I had one of these middle ones. And then I took two of the smaller ones. And now that we've actually made our whole card look kind of glittery, these, to me, actually look even better than on this card because they don't sort of stand out so much as being like the only thing that's glittering on the card. All right, so there is those. And then now all we're going to do is put it on our card front. So I've already got a piece of Night of Navy here that I have scored and folded. And what I think I'm going to do, only because this card is already curling because of us doing the embossing, I'm going to use the Terran tape. It's a little bit stronger than the snail, I find. So we are going to use that instead. So I'm just gonna place some Terran tape on all my edges and probably some in the center to hold this down. And hopefully that will work for us. This stuff is great if you don't already have some and use it. It just tears like duct tape. And then you just tear off the backing. So I know I have several women who craft with me on a regular basis in my classes, or else they come to club. And this is what they use all the time. They use just this tape. So it's easy to use. There's lots of, it's great for 3D projects as well. So if you like to make little boxes or things like that. When I make the little boxes, if you follow my things at Christmas time, when I do those little coffee cups that are super cute, and then I put them on the little holders so that they hold a gift card, I use this to make those. The card boxes I made for last Christmas that held like 4 cards, 4 tags, 4 note cards. I used it on those as well. So I use it on any of those kind of 3D projects. So you can see, you just tear the backing off. And yeah, so we're gonna do our best to line this up because, again, like most adhesives, it's not necessarily super forgiving to pull off. So I need to make sure I'm fairly straight. And then I am just going to apply some pressure. And there we have it. So this is the card we just made, looking very shimmery and underwater. And then this is the original one that I had already made. So you can see the difference. I think they both are stunning, but you know, this one is a lot more fun. So I could still go over this one. It'll just mean my sentiment will also have that effect. The only reason I probably won't is because I'll be worried that it's going to curl my whole card, which I don't like. So there we have it. So hopefully, ladies, you found that fun to watch. Maybe you learned a few things: aqua painter, watercoloring, stamping on DSP, and making a really cool glassy effect with Versamark and clear embossing powder. So yay! All right, thank you for joining me. That was pretty quick, I think, roughly 25 minutes. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And if you want any of these products, don't forget you only have until June the 2nd. Then it will be new catalog time. Yay! Bye!